BTS is globally recognized as a cohesive powerhouse where every member brings a distinct, irreplaceable strength to the stage. Yet behind the scenes of their international rise, several of the most influential figures in American music history have quietly pointed to Jungkook as possessing a rare, defining quality that sets his trajectory apart. These are industry veterans, legendary producers, vocalists, and performers who have shaped decades of popular culture. Their observations aren't just polite praise, they pinpoint specific artistic elements that differentiate him within the group. What is it about his vocal mechanics, physical performance, and creative instincts that caught the attention of these music icons? And how do these insights redefine our understanding of his role in the global music landscape? Let's examine what these 7 US legends saw in Jungkook.
Number 7. Quincy Jones says Jungkook has exceptional global star potential. To understand what makes a musician a global star, one must look at the blueprint established by Quincy Jones. With a career spanning over 70 decades, Jones is the architect behind the most successful album in music history, Michael Jackson's Thriller. His production philosophy centers on identifying artists who possess an innate cross-cultural appeal that transcends language, geography, and demographic boundaries. When music industry veterans and producers connected to Jones's legacy analyze the contemporary pop landscape, Jungkook's name consistently emerges. The reason lies in how his performance style aligns with the classical parameters of global pop stardom. A rare combination of precise vocal mechanics, physical stamina, and a charismatic aura that communicates instantly with an audience, regardless of cultural barriers. Jones always looked for artists who could deliver a performance that felt both effortless and technically flawless. Jungkook meets these exact criteria by demonstrating a level of dedication to vocal stability and physical execution that is increasingly rare in the digital age. His potential is not just about popularity, it is about his adherence to the fundamentals of timeless pop music. In the modern music era, the term global star is frequently overused, yet its true definition requires a versatility that few artists can sustain. Within the K-pop system, performers are trained to be exceptionally proficient in multiple disciplines, but transitioning that collective training into a singular solo identity that resonates on the scale of historic Western pop icons is a distinct challenge. Jungkook's distinction lies in his ability to bridge these two worlds. His artistic foundation is built on the rigorous demands of BTS's group dynamics, where he serves as the main vocalist. However, when observing his solo execution, legacy producers note an individualistic drive that recalls the golden era of American pop, R&B, and soul. He does not merely perform a choreographed routine, he inhabits the rhythm in a way that suggests a deep, internalized understanding of groove, a quality that Quincy Jones famously demanded from every musician he worked with. To Jones, the groove was the physical heartbeat of the track, and the vocalist had to ride it with absolute precision. Jungkook does exactly this, showing a natural affinity for rhythmic pocketing that is rare for contemporary artists. A key element of this global potential is Jungkook's vocal delivery, which is characterized by its clean production, tone clarity, and rhythmic agility. Unlike vocalists who rely heavily on excessive ornamentation, dramatic runs, or stylistic affectations, Jungkook's style is grounded in clarity and pitch stability. His vocal register, primarily a light lyric tenor, allows him to navigate transition zones between his chest voice and head voice with minimal friction. This technical efficiency is crucial when performing live. In Quincy Jones's recording sessions, vocalists were expected to deliver takes that felt natural yet mathematically precise in their timing. Jungkook's work on his solo debut, particularly the tracks on his album Golden, demonstrates this exact discipline. Whether navigating the syncopated UK garage beats of Seven or the retro funk layers of Standing Next to You, his vocals remain locked into the pocket of the rhythm, providing a steady anchor for the instrumentation. His vocal control extends to his use of dynamics, transitioning from breathy, intimate verses to powerful, chest-resonant choruses without sounding strained, allowing him to appeal to a broad spectrum of global listeners. This level of vocal control is not merely a studio product, it is a live performance asset that separates him from the conventional group format. In a group, a member can rely on the collective energy, staggered vocal distributions, and visual distractions to maintain a high-impact show. As a solo performer, the entire stage must be commanded by a single individual for the duration of a concert. Jungkook's ability to maintain vocal pitch and breath control while executing intense choreography has become his signature attribute.
This synthesis of motion and sound is reminiscent of the performers Quincy Jones championed during the peak of the 20th century pop explosion. The physical exertion required to dance at a professional level while delivering clear, unbacked lead vocals is immense, requiring years of athletic conditioning. Jungkook's commitment to this level of live performance shows a dedication to the craft that commands respect from industry veterans who have seen generations of artists rely on lip-syncing or heavy backing tracks. His live vocals are often so stable that they match the studio recordings, a feat that requires exceptional diaphragm support and control. Furthermore, Jungkook's global appeal is rooted in his stylistic neutrality, which allows him to adapt to various Western musical genres without losing his core identity. His solo project, Golden, was deliberately curated to explore different facets of pop history, ranging from acoustic ballads to electronic dance music and modern R&B. By collaborating with prominent Western producers like Andrew Watt, Circuit, and Blood Pop, Jungkook positioned himself directly within the mainstream American pop lineage. The resulting tracks did not feel like foreign adaptations of Western music. They felt like natural continuations of the genre. This ease of adaptation is a major factor in why legacy figures view his potential as distinct. While other members of BTS have pursued solo paths that delve deep into hip-hop, indie rock, or theatrical performance art, Jungkook has focused on the broad, universally accessible center of pop music, mastering the fundamentals that make songs hit charts worldwide. His ability to fit into different sonic landscapes makes him a highly sought-after collaborator for producers who want a vocalist capable of handling complex arrangements. The commercial metrics of this approach speak for themselves, proving that his appeal is not limited to the existing BTS fanbase. The historic success of Seven on the Billboard Hot 100 and global streaming platforms showed that he could attract casual listeners who may have had little prior exposure to Korean pop music. This ability to capture the broader public is the hallmark of a true global star. Legacy figures like Quincy Jones have always maintained that a great song, delivered by an artist with genuine communicative power, will find its way to every corner of the earth. Jungkook's solo trajectory has validated this principle, showing that his musical instincts are aligned with the universal patterns of human listening habits. He possesses the ability to make a listener feel a sense of familiarity even when hearing his music for the first time. This universal quality is what makes him a viable global artist for the long term, rather than a temporary trend. By breaking records on platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, he proved that his marketability is a global reality. Ultimately, Jungkook's exceptional global star potential is not the result of a single breakout moment, rather the culmination of years of disciplined development. His journey from a teenage trainee to a solo artist capable of performing at the FIFA World Cup opening ceremony demonstrates a steady accumulation of artistic authority. He has studied the masters of pop, absorbed their techniques, and applied them to his own performance style. This respect for the history of the medium, combined with his natural physical and vocal gifts, makes him a unique figure in the contemporary landscape. He is not just representing a specific wave of music, he is establishing himself as a permanent fixture in the global pop canon. As we analyze how this star potential translates to the physical space of the stage, we must look at how his presence commands the attention of even the most seasoned performers, leading us to examine the magnetic quality of his live performances.
Number 6. Diana Ross. Jungkook's stage presence feels naturally magnetic. Diana Ross is not simply a singer. She is the living standard by which stage presence in American popular music has been measured for over half a century. As the lead vocalist of the Supremes, Ross helped Motown Records become the most commercially dominant label of the 1960s, producing 12 #1 singles on the Billboard Hot 100 between 1964 and 1967 alone. Her transition to a solo career only solidified her status, with hits like Ain't No Mountain High Enough and I'm Coming Out becoming permanent fixtures in the cultural vocabulary of pop music. What defined Ross was never raw vocal power in the traditional sense. It was her ability to walk onto a stage and immediately become the only thing an audience could look at. She possessed what performers call the light, an intangible gravitational quality that pulls every pair of eyes in a venue toward a single point. When observers within Ross's circle and broader industry legacy have assessed Jungkook's live performances, they have identified that same quality operating at full force. His stage presence is not manufactured through production design or pyrotechnics. It radiates from the performer himself, and that distinction matters enormously. Stage presence, as a concept, is frequently misunderstood. Many assume it is synonymous with energy, jumping higher, moving faster, screaming louder. But true stage presence is about spatial authority. It is the ability to control how an audience perceives the physical dimensions of a performance space. Diana Ross could stand motionless at center stage, extend one hand toward the balcony, and make 20,000 people feel as though she was reaching directly into their individual seats. This is a skill that cannot be choreographed or rehearsed into existence. It is rooted in the performer's relationship with their own body and their awareness of where they exist relative to every person watching. Jungkook demonstrates this same spatial intelligence in a way that distinguishes him within BTS's group formation. In a 7-member group executing synchronized choreography, each member occupies a designated zone on stage. Jungkook, however, consistently exhibits what dance professionals refer to as stage eating, the ability to visually expand beyond one's assigned space without physically overstepping. His movements carry a weight and intentionality that draw the camera and the eye, even when he is positioned at the periphery of a formation. The mechanics behind this phenomenon are worth examining. Jungkook's physical performance operates on a principle of controlled contrast. He alternates between moments of explosive, full-body kinetic output and sudden, precise stillness. This contrast creates a visual rhythm that mirrors the musical architecture of the track he is performing. When the instrumentation builds, his body amplifies the tension through expansive movement. When the beat drops or a vocal line demands intimacy, he pulls inward, reducing his physical footprint to a single gesture or a direct gaze into the camera. This push and pull dynamic is exactly what Diana Ross mastered during her Motown era. Ross understood that a performance is not a continuous escalation. It is a conversation between tension and release. Jungkook applies this principle instinctively. His performance of Euphoria during BTS's concert tours is a clear example. The song begins with a delicate, airy vocal line, and his stage movement mirrors it, soft, fluid, almost weightless. As the chorus expands, his physicality opens up proportionally, creating a visual crescendo that aligns perfectly with the sonic architecture of the track. This synchronization between body and sound is what separates a performer from a singer who happens to be standing on a stage. Another critical dimension of Jungkook's magnetic presence is his eye contact discipline. In the era of arena concerts and stadium tours, most performers rely on screens, lighting rigs, and massive LED walls to connect with audiences numbering in the tens of thousands. These tools are valuable, but they are supplements, not substitutes, for direct human connection. Jungkook has developed a technique of engaging with fixed camera positions during live performances in a way that simulates intimate eye contact for viewers watching on screens, both inside the venue and through live streams. He does not simply glance at a camera, he locks onto it with a focused intensity that creates the illusion of a one-to-one interaction. This is a skill that veteran television performers spend years developing. Diana Ross perfected it during her countless appearances on programs like The Ed Sullivan Show and The TAMI Show, where the ability to connect through a lens determined whether a performance would be remembered or forgotten. Jungkook's command of this technique at live events, such as his sold-out solo concert at Goyang Stadium in 2023 and his performance at the 2022 FIFA World Cup opening ceremony in Qatar, broadcast to an estimated global audience of over 1 billion viewers, demonstrated a camera awareness that most artists never fully achieve.
The FIFA World Cup performance deserves particular attention because it placed Jungkook in a context entirely removed from the K-pop ecosystem. He was not performing for a crowd of dedicated fans who already knew his choreography and lyrics. He was performing for a global sporting audience, many of whom had never heard his name. The opening ceremony of a World Cup is one of the most high-pressure performance environments on the planet. The stage is enormous, the audience is distracted by the anticipation of the sporting event, and the performer must capture attention within the first few seconds or risk being reduced to background noise. Jungkook's performance of Dreamers succeeded precisely because of his natural magnetism. He moved across the vast stadium stage with a confidence that made the space feel intimate. His vocal delivery was strong and stable, despite the physical demands of performing on an outdoor stage with unpredictable acoustics. Most critically, he projected an energy that transcended the language barrier of the song itself. Viewers across the Middle East, South America, Europe, and Africa responded to the performance not because they understood every word, but because his physical presence communicated excitement, joy, and connection on a primal, pre-verbal level. This is the exact quality that defined Diana Ross's crossover appeal during the 1960s and 1970s, the ability to make music feel universal through the sheer force of one's presence. What makes this magnetism feel natural, as opposed to constructed, is the absence of visible effort in Jungkook's stage demeanor. Many performers who possess high energy betray the labor behind their output. Their faces show strain, their breathing becomes audible between phrases, their transitions between movements carry a visible recalibration. Jungkook, by contrast, maintains an expression of composed ease even during the most physically demanding sequences. This is not an indication that the work is easy, it is evidence of extreme physical conditioning and a deep internalization of choreography to the point where the movements have become reflexive rather than cognitive. The result is a performer who appears to be enjoying the stage rather than surviving it. Audiences instinctively respond to this quality because it removes the barrier of sympathy. Instead of worrying about whether the performer can sustain the effort, they are free to simply absorb the experience. Diana Ross exhibited this identical quality throughout her career. Even during elaborate costume changes, complex staging, and multi-song medleys, she maintained an aura of effortless glamour that made her performances feel like an extension of her natural state of being, not a task she was executing. Within the context of BTS, this natural magnetism creates an interesting dynamic. Each member brings a distinct performance identity to the group's stage shows. Some members excel through technical precision and dance, others through raw, charismatic energy or theatrical expression. Jungkook's contribution is a blend that is difficult to categorize because it does not lean heavily on any single attribute. He is not the most technically complex dancer in the group. That distinction is often attributed to J-Hope or Jimin. He is not the most theatrically expressive. RM and V bring distinct narrative dimensions to their performances. What Jungkook provides is a centripetal force, a gravitational center that anchors the group's visual output. When all 7 members are on stage together, audience eye-tracking studies and fan cam view counts consistently show disproportionate attention directed toward Jungkook. His solo fan cams routinely accumulate the highest view counts among all members, often by significant margins, with individual concert fan cams reaching tens of millions of views on YouTube. This data does not diminish the other members. It quantifies the magnetic pull that industry veterans like Diana Ross have spent their careers studying and embodying. This gravitational stage quality is not static. It has evolved visibly over the course of Jungkook's career. Early performances from BTS's debut era in 2013 showed a talented but still developing teenager whose stage presence was largely derived from youthful energy and technical execution. By the Love Yourself era in 2018 and 2019, a noticeable shift had occurred. His movements became more deliberate, his facial expressions more controlled, and his interaction with the audience more sophisticated. By the time he performed as a solo artist in 2023 and beyond, his stage presence had matured into something that felt fully autonomous, no longer dependent on the group framework for its impact. This evolution mirrors the trajectory of Diana Ross herself, who transitioned from the structured harmonies and choreography of the Supremes into a solo career defined by her individual command of the stage. The parallel is striking and speaks to a universal pattern in the development of magnetic performers. Now, beyond the visual dimension of live performance, another American music figure recognized a different facet of Jungkook's artistry, his extraordinary ability to adapt across musical styles and creative environments.
Number 5. Steve Aoki. Jungkook's adaptability sets him apart from other BTS members. Steve Aoki occupies a unique position in the conversation about Jungkook and BTS because he is not observing from the outside. He has been in the studio with them. He has stood behind the mixing console while they recorded. He has watched in real time how each member processes musical direction, interprets a producer's vision, and translates abstract sonic concepts into concrete vocal and performance output. Aoki is one of the most prolific electronic dance music producers and DJs in the world, with a discography that spans over 200 collaborations across genres as varied as EDM, hip-hop, Latin pop, rock, and K-pop. His label, Dim Mak Records, which he founded in 1996, has been a launchpad for acts like the Chainsmokers, Block Party, and The Kills. When Aoki identifies a specific quality in an artist, it is not casual flattery. It is a professional assessment rooted in decades of collaborative experience. His work with BTS on tracks like The Truth Untold, Wasted on Me, and Mic Drop Steve Aoki Remix gave him direct, sustained exposure to every member's creative process. From that vantage point, he observed that Jungkook's adaptability, his capacity to shift between musical styles, vocal textures, and emotional registers with minimal adjustment time, operates at a level that distinguishes him from his groupmates. Adaptability in music is a deceptively complex skill. On the surface, it appears simple. A singer adjusts their voice to fit a different genre. In practice, it requires a vocalist to dismantle and rebuild their entire approach to tone production, rhythmic phrasing, breath placement, and emotional delivery for each new musical context. A ballad singer who attempts an up-tempo dance track without genuinely adapting will sound like a ballad singer performing over a fast beat. The genre shift must penetrate deeper than tempo. It must alter the fundamental relationship between the voice and the instrumental bed. Jungkook demonstrates this depth of adaptation consistently. Consider the distance between his vocal approach on Still With You, a lo-fi, jazz-inflected solo track released in 2020, and his delivery on Seven, a high-energy pop track with UK garage influences released in 2023. On Still With You, his voice sits behind the beat, employing a relaxed, breathy placement that allows the jazzy chord progressions to lead the arrangement. On Seven, his vocal attack shifts forward, sitting directly on top of the beat with a bright, percussive clarity that drives the track's momentum. These are not minor cosmetic adjustments. They represent fundamentally different philosophies of how a voice should interact with music. The fact that both performances sound authentically like Jungkook, despite their radical stylistic differences, is the hallmark of genuine adaptability. Steve Aoki's production style is particularly demanding in this regard because electronic dance music requires vocalists to function as an additional instrument within a heavily layered sonic architecture. In a stripped-down acoustic arrangement, the voice is the centerpiece and the instrumentation supports it. In EDM, the hierarchy inverts. Synthesizers, bass lines, and drum programming occupy the sonic foreground, and the vocal must find its place within that dense landscape without getting buried, or conversely, without overpowering the mix. This requires a vocalist to understand frequency space intuitively. A singer who projects with too much mid-range force will clash with the synthesizer pads. A singer who retreats into a thin, airy register will disappear beneath the low-end compression. Jungkook navigated this balance during the recording of Wasted on Me, BTS's first all-English track, which was built on Aoki's signature festival EDM framework. His vocal tone on the track occupies a precise frequency pocket, warm enough to convey emotional weight, bright enough to cut through the electronic layers, and dynamically controlled enough to allow the production's build and drop structure to function without the vocal competing against it. Producers who work across genres recognize this kind of frequency awareness as an advanced skill, one that many seasoned Western vocalists struggle with when transitioning from organic instrumentation to electronic production. The speed at which Jungkook processes and implements musical direction is another dimension of his adaptability that collaborators have noted. In a professional studio environment, time is a finite and expensive resource. A producer provides direction, adjust the phrasing here, darken the vowel shape there, push the rhythmic emphasis to the offbeat. Artists who require extensive coaching, repeated demonstrations, or long periods of experimentation slow the creative process and limit the range of ideas that can be explored within a session.
Jungkook, according to accounts from multiple collaborators, absorbs direction rapidly and often delivers a usable take within the first few attempts after receiving a note. This is not simply about obedience or technical proficiency. It is about comprehension. He understands why a producer is asking for a specific adjustment, which allows him to anticipate the next direction and sometimes arrive at the desired result before being explicitly guided there. This kind of intuitive responsiveness accelerates the collaborative process and opens space for creative experimentation that would otherwise be consumed by technical troubleshooting. What makes Jungkook's adaptability particularly notable within BTS is that it extends beyond vocal performance into physical and visual dimensions. BTS's discography is deliberately eclectic. The group has released material spanning hip-hop, pop rock, tropical house, future bass, neo-soul, and orchestral balladry. Each era of their career has been accompanied by distinct visual concepts, choreographic styles, and stage personas. While every member adapts to these shifts as part of the group's collective identity, Jungkook's transitions between eras feel particularly seamless. During the Wings era in 2016, BTS explored darker, more mature thematic territory, and Jungkook's solo track Begin required a vulnerable, emotionally exposed vocal delivery set against a cinematic instrumental. By the Love Yourself Answer era in 2018, Euphoria demanded an entirely different approach, an uplifting, soaring pop vocal that conveyed liberation and joy. In 2020, My Time shifted again into a smooth, sultry R&B lane that required rhythmic sophistication and a lower, more grounded vocal placement. Each of these performances sounds like a natural expression of Jungkook's artistry, rather than an uncomfortable stretch into unfamiliar territory. The consistency of authenticity across such divergent styles suggests that his artistic identity is not defined by a single genre, but by a core set of vocal and performative principles that can be applied flexibly across any musical framework. This adaptability is also observable in his approach to language. Jungkook's transition to English-language material for his solo career was notably smooth compared to the typical challenges faced by non-native English-speaking artists entering the Western market. Singing in a second language is not merely about pronunciation, it is about understanding how the phonetic properties of that language interact with melody. English vowels, consonants, and syllable stress patterns behave differently from Korean ones, and a vocalist who applies Korean phonetic habits to English lyrics will produce a result that sounds technically correct but musically awkward. Jungkook's English-language performances on tracks like 7, 3D, and Standing Next to You demonstrate a studied understanding of English vocal phrasing. His vowel shapes are naturalistic, his consonant placements align with the rhythmic grid of the instrumentation, and his emotional emphasis falls on the correct syllabic stress points.
This linguistic adaptability contributed directly to the commercial performance of these tracks, with 7 debuting at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and maintaining chart presence for weeks, demonstrating that his English delivery was convincing enough to resonate with mainstream Western listeners who might otherwise be resistant to non-native vocal performances. Steve Aoki's perspective on Jungkook's adaptability carries additional weight because Aoki himself is one of the most genre-fluid producers in the industry. His career has been defined by a refusal to remain confined within a single sonic lane. He has produced tracks with Linkin Park, BTS, Maluma, will.i.am, and Louis Tomlinson, each requiring a fundamentally different production philosophy. When a producer of this breadth identifies adaptability as a standout quality in an artist, it signals that the artist is capable of functioning at a high level across the full spectrum of contemporary popular music. For Jungkook, this assessment validates a trajectory that has already been demonstrated commercially and critically. His ability to shift between emotional registers, vocal techniques, physical performance styles, and linguistic frameworks without losing the core thread of his artistic identity is what makes him a uniquely versatile asset, both within BTS and as an independent artist. This versatility is not just about range, it's about the depth of understanding behind each adaptation, a quality that ensures every stylistic shift feels intentional rather than imitative. And while adaptability speaks to how Jungkook processes music externally, the next legend on our list recognized something even more intimate: the way his voice carries emotional truth that resonates on a deeply personal level with listeners.
Number 4. Her. Jungkook's emotional voice is different from the others. Her, born Gabriela Sarmiento Wilson, is not an artist who trades in superficiality. She built her entire career on the premise that music should make you feel something real. By the age of 23, she had already won 5 Grammy Awards, including Song of the Year for I Can't Breathe in 2021 and Best R&B Album for her in 2019. Her artistic philosophy is rooted in the tradition of vocalists like Lauryn Hill, Aaliyah, and D'Angelo, artists who prioritized emotional transparency over technical showmanship. When her listens to a voice, she is not counting vocal runs or measuring range in octaves. She is listening for something far more elusive, whether the singer means it. Whether the vibration in the vocal cords is carrying genuine human experience or simply reproducing a learned pattern of melodic decoration. From this deeply personal framework, her appreciation of Jungkook's vocal delivery centers on his ability to transmit emotion through his voice in a way that feels distinct from the other members of BTS. Not because the others lack emotion, but because Jungkook's particular mechanism of emotional delivery operates through a different set of vocal and interpretive tools. The science of vocal emotion is a field that bridges physiology, psychology, and acoustics. When a human being experiences genuine emotion while singing, measurable changes occur in the vocal apparatus. The laryngeal muscles adjust tension, altering the fundamental frequency of the voice. The subglottic pressure, the air pressure beneath the vocal folds, fluctuates in response to the autonomic nervous system, which is directly connected to emotional states. The result is that a voice carrying real emotion produces micro-variations in pitch, timing, and timbre that are nearly impossible to consciously replicate. Listeners detect these micro-variations subconsciously, even if they cannot articulate what they are hearing. This is why a technically perfect vocal performance can leave an audience cold, while a less polished but emotionally honest delivery can produce tears. Jungkook's voice exhibits these micro-variations with remarkable consistency. His vibrato is not uniform. It widens and narrows in response to the lyrical content, suggesting that his emotional engagement with the text is actively shaping his vocal production in real time. His breath placement shifts between phrases in ways that mirror natural speech patterns associated with specific emotional states. Shorter, more pressured breaths during moments of urgency, longer and more controlled exhalations during passages of resolution or acceptance. This emotional mechanism is most clearly observable in Jungkook's performance of ballads and mid-tempo tracks, where the instrumental arrangement creates space for vocal nuance to be heard. His solo track, Still With You, released as a free gift to fans during the 2020 BTS Festa, is a masterclass in understated emotional delivery. The song is built on a sparse lo-fi jazz instrumental, soft piano chords, a muted drum loop, and ambient rain sounds. Within this minimal sonic framework, every imperfection in Jungkook's voice is exposed. There is nowhere to hide behind production tricks or layered harmonies. His delivery on this track is characterized by a deliberate vulnerability. He allows his voice to thin out at the ends of phrases, lets certain notes land slightly behind the beat, as though the weight of the lyric is physically slowing his delivery, and employs a breathy, half-spoken quality in the verses that creates the sensation of overhearing a private confession rather than listening to a polished performance. This approach aligns precisely with the R&B tradition that her represents, where emotional authenticity is valued above all other vocal attributes. What distinguishes Jungkook's emotional voice within BTS is not a matter of capacity, but of method. Each member of the group brings a distinct emotional signature to their vocal performances. Jimin's voice carries a plaintive, almost fragile quality that evokes tenderness and longing. V's deep baritone conveys a melancholic warmth that suggests nostalgia and introspection. Jin's clear, resonant tenor delivers emotion through precision and controlled restraint. These are all valid and powerful modes of emotional communication. Jungkook's method differs in its directness. His emotional delivery does not rely on stylistic ornamentation to signal what the listener should feel. Instead, he strips his voice to its most fundamental elements, tone, timing, and breath, and allows the emotion to emerge from the intersection of those basics. This approach is riskier because it offers less protection. A vocalist who relies on melismatic runs or dramatic dynamic shifts can mask moments of emotional disconnection behind technical activity. A vocalist who commits to simplicity has no such cover. Every phrase either connects or it does not. Jungkook consistently connects, which suggests a level of emotional access, a willingness to be genuinely present in the lyric that is difficult to sustain over the course of a career. The emotional weight of Jungkook's voice is also shaped by his interpretive choices regarding lyric emphasis. In vocal performance, not every word in a lyric carries equal importance. The art of interpretation lies in identifying which words hold the emotional center of gravity in a phrase and adjusting vocal weight accordingly. Jungkook demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of this principle. In his performance of Euphoria, the word itself, euphoria, is delivered with an ascending vocal line that opens into a bright, chest-mixed resonance, physically embodying the sensation of rising joy. But it is the smaller, transitional words surrounding it that reveal his interpretive depth. Prepositions, articles, and conjunctions are treated not as throwaways, but as connective tissue that maintains the emotional continuity of the phrase. He does not drop energy between the key emotional words and the structural words. The entire line is sustained at a consistent emotional temperature. This technique prevents the common problem of emotional spotlighting, where a vocalist pours intensity into headline words and allows everything else to become filler. The result is a vocal performance that feels like a continuous emotional stream rather than a series of disconnected highlights. Her own musical language provides a useful lens for understanding why this quality resonates with artists of her caliber. In the contemporary R&B tradition, the concept of feel is paramount. A vocalist's feel is their intuitive understanding of how to place their voice within the rhythmic and harmonic framework of a song in a way that maximizes emotional impact. It is not something that can be taught through conventional vocal training. It is developed through years of listening, absorbing, and internalizing the work of previous generations. Jungkook has been publicly vocal about his admiration for Western R&B and pop artists, citing Justin Timberlake, Usher, and Justin Bieber as formative influences. His vocal style reflects this immersion. The way he approaches melodic phrasing, slightly bending pitches at the start of notes, allowing certain syllables to slide into their target frequency rather than hitting it squarely, is a technique borrowed directly from the R&B tradition. This pitch bending, known as portamento, adds a human warmth to his delivery that counterbalances the precision of K-pop's typically meticulous production standards. It is a small technical detail, but its emotional impact is significant. It makes his voice sound like it is reaching for the melody rather than executing it, and that sense of effort communicates sincerity. The emotional dimension of Jungkook's voice also extends to his use of silence and space. In Western musical tradition, the concept of ma, borrowed from Japanese aesthetics and widely applied in jazz and R&B, refers to the emotional power of empty space within a performance. The notes a singer chooses not to sing can be as emotionally potent as the notes they deliver. Jungkook employs space strategically in his vocal arrangements. He allows instrumental breaks to breathe without filling them with ad-libs or vocal decorations. He permits pauses between phrases to carry the residual emotion of the previous line forward into the next. This restraint is particularly evident in live performances, where the temptation to fill silence is strongest. During his solo stages at BTS concerts, Jungkook often allows several beats of instrumental space to pass, while maintaining physical stillness and direct eye contact with the audience, creating moments of shared emotional suspension that amplify the impact of his next vocal entry. This understanding of negative space as an emotional tool is a hallmark of mature vocal artistry and aligns with the aesthetic principles that define his own approach to performance. Jungkook's emotional voice is not a static attribute. It has deepened and matured over the course of his career in ways that are audibly traceable. Early recordings from BTS's debut era reveal a voice that was technically capable but emotionally generalized, conveying broad categories of feeling without the specificity that characterizes his later work. By the Wings era, his solo track, Begin, showed the first clear signs of emotional particularization, with his delivery reflecting the specific autobiographical content of the lyrics, which addressed his gratitude and emotional dependence on his hyungs. By Map of the Soul, 7 and his solo track, My Time, the emotional palette had expanded further, incorporating anxiety, ambivalence, and the complex emotional texture of a young man processing the surreal trajectory of his own life. This evolution is not merely the result of aging. It reflects an active, ongoing engagement with the emotional possibilities of his own instrument. And it is precisely this kind of active artistic engagement that our next legend, one of the greatest performers in modern music history, recognized in a different dimension of Jungkook's craft, the extraordinary balance he maintains between vocals, choreography, and expression in a single live performance. Number 3. Usher. Jungkook's performance balance is unlike other members. Usher Raymond IV does not need an introduction, but he deserves context. Over a career spanning more than 3 decades, Usher has sold over 80 million records worldwide, won 8 Grammy Awards, and established himself as the definitive male performer in American R&B and pop since the mid-1990s. His 2004 album Confessions sold over 10 million copies in the United States alone and produced consecutive #1 singles that dominated radio for an entire calendar year. But Usher's most enduring legacy is not his record sales. It is his live performance standard. He is widely regarded as the last true heir to the lineage that runs from James Brown through Michael Jackson, artists whose concerts were not simply musical events, but athletic, theatrical, and vocal exhibitions executed simultaneously at the highest possible level. When Usher evaluates a performer, he is applying the most demanding criteria in the industry. He is asking whether the artist can sing with full vocal power while executing choreography that would exhaust a professional dancer, all while maintaining the emotional expressiveness and audience connection of a seasoned actor. This triple threat standard, voice, movement, and presence unified in real time, is the lens through which Usher's admiration of Jungkook's performance balance must be understood. The physical reality of simultaneous singing and dancing is governed by a fundamental biological conflict. Singing requires controlled, sustained airflow managed by the diaphragm and intercostal muscles. Dancing demands rapid, irregular breathing patterns driven by the cardiovascular system's response to intense physical exertion. These two respiratory requirements are in direct opposition. When a performer dances aggressively, the body's demand for oxygen increases dramatically, forcing rapid inhalation that disrupts the steady airflow needed for pitch stability and vocal projection. The heart rate elevates, the abdominal muscles engage for movement rather than breath support, and the laryngeal muscles tighten under physical stress, narrowing the vocal range and reducing tonal quality. Most performers resolve this conflict by choosing one priority over the other, either simplifying their choreography to protect their vocals or relying on backing tracks and lip-syncing to maintain the visual intensity of their dance performance. Jungkook refuses this compromise. His live performances consistently demonstrate a commitment to delivering both elements at full capacity, and the physiological conditioning required to achieve this is extraordinary. The biomechanics of Jungkook's approach can be observed in specific performances that have been widely analyzed by vocal coaches and dance professionals. His execution of Fake Love during BTS's Love Yourself World Tour is a frequently cited example. The choreography for this track includes rapid directional changes, floor work requiring explosive upward transitions, and synchronized group formations that demand precise spatial timing. Throughout these physical demands, Jungkook maintains his vocal lines with a stability that is verifiable through comparison with the studio recording. His pitch remains centered, his breath control allows him to sustain notes through movement transitions, and his vocal tone retains its characteristic warmth rather than thinning out under exertion. The technique enabling this involves a specific approach to breath management called intercostal diaphragmatic breathing, where the singer expands the lower ribs laterally during inhalation rather than raising the chest, allowing the diaphragm to maintain its supportive position even while the body is in motion. This technique is standard training for opera singers performing stage productions, but applying it within the context of high-intensity pop choreography requires a level of athletic conditioning that goes far beyond traditional vocal training. Usher himself developed this capacity through years of grueling preparation under the mentorship of individuals like Sean Diddy Combs during his teenage years and later through his own obsessive rehearsal regimen. His 2024 Super Bowl halftime show performance, watched by over 123 million viewers, showcased a then 45-year-old artist executing roller skating choreography, rapid costume changes, and full vocal performances across a medley of his greatest hits, a physical feat that left industry professionals stunned. Usher has been public about the thousands of hours of rehearsal, vocal conditioning, and physical training required to sustain that level of output. When he observes a younger artist demonstrating a similar commitment to the simultaneous mastery of voice and movement, he recognizes it immediately because he knows exactly what it costs. Jungkook's performance at the 2022 FIFA World Cup opening ceremony in Doha, Qatar, provided a globally visible demonstration of this balance. Performing Dreamers on an enormous outdoor stage in front of a live stadium audience and a global broadcast viewership exceeding 1 billion, Jungkook delivered a vocal performance that was demonstrably live. His breath catches, dynamic shifts, and micro-phrasing variations confirmed the absence of a backing vocal safety net, while executing choreography across a stage that required significant physical traversal. The concept of performance balance, as Usher understands it, extends beyond the mechanical synchronization of singing and dancing. It encompasses a third, equally critical element: expressive storytelling. A performer can sing perfectly and dance flawlessly but still fail to connect if their face is blank, their eyes are unfocused, or their physical demeanor is disconnected from the emotional content of the song. This third layer, the actor's layer, requires the performer to project narrative and feeling through facial expression, hand gesture, body angle, and eye direction, all while the body and voice are already operating at near maximum capacity. It is, in effect, asking a single human being to function as three specialists simultaneously: a vocalist, a dancer, and an actor. Jungkook's ability to maintain this triple output is what makes his performance balance particularly rare. During live performances of emotionally intense tracks like Black Swan, his facial expressions track the psychological narrative of the song, shifting from controlled composure to anguished intensity, while his body executes contemporary dance movements drawn from modern dance vocabulary, and his voice sustains a melodic line that requires both power and vulnerability. The cognitive load required to manage these three parallel processes is immense, and the fact that Jungkook makes it appear effortless is itself a testament to the depth of his preparation. Within BTS, every member contributes to the group's famously demanding live performances, and each has developed individual strategies for managing the singing-dancing conflict. J-Hope, widely regarded as the group's strongest dancer, often employs a performance approach that prioritizes rhythmic precision and sharp isolations, allowing his vocal parts, which are frequently rap-based and therefore less dependent on sustained breath support, to coexist with his movement. Jeon, whose contemporary dance background gives him exceptional fluidity and control, sometimes adjusts his vocal weight during the most physically demanding choreographic passages, thinning his tone to conserve breath while maintaining pitch accuracy. V uses his naturally lower vocal register, which requires less subglottic pressure to produce, as an advantage during dance-heavy segments. These are all intelligent, professional adaptations to the fundamental biological challenge of simultaneous performance. What distinguishes Jungkook is that his adaptations are less visible. He does not appear to reduce any of the three elements to accommodate the others. His vocal power does not audibly diminish during dance breaks. His choreographic precision does not soften during vocally demanding passages. And his expressive engagement does not flatten when the physical and vocal demands peak simultaneously. This is not a criticism of his group mates. It is a recognition that Jungkook's specific physiological gifts, combined with his conditioning regimen, allow him to sustain a level of simultaneous output that is statistically uncommon. The physical conditioning behind this balance is not accidental. Jungkook's well-documented fitness regimen, which includes strength training, cardio conditioning, and flexibility work, is specifically designed to support the demands of his performance style. His muscular endurance, the ability of his muscles to perform repeated contractions without fatigue, is a critical factor in maintaining dance quality across a 2-hour concert. His cardiovascular efficiency, developed through sustained aerobic training, allows his body to process oxygen more effectively, reducing the respiratory disruption that typically compromises vocal quality during physical exertion. In interviews and behind-the-scenes content, Jungkook has been shown engaging in intense physical training on concert days, a practice that would be counterproductive for most performers, but suggests that his fitness baseline is high enough to absorb the additional load without diminishing his performance capacity. This athletic approach to artistry is directly aligned with the Usher school of performance, where the stage is treated as an arena and the performer as an athlete whose body is their primary instrument. The long-term implications of this performance philosophy are significant. Artists who maintain a high standard of simultaneous vocal and physical output face an accelerated timeline of physical wear. Joints, vocal cords, and cardiovascular systems are all subject to cumulative stress. Usher's ability to sustain his performance level into his mid-40s is considered exceptional precisely because so few artists manage it. Jungkook, still in his late 20s, has already accumulated over a decade of professional performing experience, having debuted with BTS at the age of 15 in 2013. His current physical and vocal condition suggests a performer who has managed this accumulation intelligently, avoiding the overuse injuries and vocal damage that frequently sideline artists who push their bodies without adequate recovery protocols. If this trajectory continues, Jungkook is positioned to sustain a performance career of unusual longevity, a prospect that would place him in the same rarefied category as the performers Usher himself idolized. And while Usher recognized the physical mastery that makes Jungkook's stage work extraordinary, the next artist on this list discovered something that operates on an entirely different plane. A musical instinct so refined that it transformed a professional collaboration into a creative revelation. Number 2, Charlie Puth. Jungkook's musical instinct is on another level. Charlie Puth is not merely a pop singer who writes catchy songs. He is one of the most technically proficient musicians working in mainstream pop today, a fact that is often obscured by the commercial accessibility of his output. Puth possesses perfect pitch, the neurological ability to identify or produce any musical note without a reference tone, a trait estimated to occur in fewer than 1 in 10,000 people in the general population. He graduated from the Berklee College of Music's songwriting program, where he studied jazz piano, music production, and classical theory. His understanding of harmonic structure, intervallic relationships, and the physics of sound frequencies operates at a level that most pop producers never approach. Puth has been publicly vocal about his obsessive attention to sonic detail. He has demonstrated on social media his ability to identify the exact pitch of everyday sounds, car horns, microwave beeps, door creaks, and place them within the chromatic scale. When an artist of this caliber describes another musician's instinct as being on another level, the statement carries a weight that transcends ordinary compliment. It means that the artist in question demonstrated, in a working environment where every musical decision is scrutinized, an intuitive grasp of music that surprised even a trained expert. That artist is Jungkook. The collaboration between Charlie Puth and Jungkook materialized in the form of Left and Right, released in June 2022. The track was a co-production effort that required both artists to work together on vocal arrangement, melodic phrasing, and harmonic interplay. This was not a remote collaboration where vocal files were exchanged between studios in different countries. Puth and Jungkook worked in direct creative proximity, a process that exposed each artist's working methods to the other in real time. Puth's account of this experience, shared across multiple interviews and social media posts, consistently highlights his surprise at Jungkook's speed of musical comprehension. According to Puth, when he played harmonic progressions on the piano and suggested vocal melody options, Jungkook did not simply repeat what was demonstrated. He internalized the harmonic logic of the suggestion and generated variations that respected the underlying chord structure while introducing melodic choices Puth had not considered. This is a critical distinction. Mimicry, the ability to accurately reproduce a demonstrated melody, is a basic skill that any trained vocalist should possess. Harmonic extrapolation, the ability to hear a chord progression and independently generate melodically coherent alternatives that fit within the harmonic framework, requires a fundamentally different kind of musical intelligence. Musical instinct, in the technical sense, refers to a musician's capacity to make correct creative decisions without conscious analytical deliberation. It is the difference between a chess player who calculates every possible move sequence before acting and a grandmaster who sees the right move immediately through pattern recognition developed over years of deep practice. In music, this manifests as the ability to hear a chord and instinctively know which notes will sound consonant or dissonant against it, to feel where a melody wants to resolve before the resolution arrives, and to sense the rhythmic pocket of a groove without counting subdivisions. These abilities can be partially developed through formal training, but their speed and accuracy in real-time application are heavily influenced by innate neurological predisposition and the depth of a musician's listening history. Jungkook's formal musical education within the K-pop training system focused primarily on vocal technique, dance, and performance rather than the theoretical and compositional curriculum of a conservatory like Berklee. The fact that he demonstrated instinctive harmonic awareness at a level that impressed a Berklee-trained musician with perfect pitch suggests that his musical intelligence has been shaped significantly by immersive listening and experiential learning, absorbing musical structures through exposure rather than explicit study. The specific nature of Jungkook's instinct, as described by Puth, centers on three domains: harmony, dynamics, and vocal detail. Harmony, as discussed, involves his intuitive grasp of how his vocal melody relates to the underlying chord progression. Dynamics refers to his understanding of volume, intensity, and energy modulation across the arc of a song. In Left and Right, the dynamic structure follows a carefully calibrated trajectory, verses that maintain a conversational, mid-energy delivery, pre-choruses that introduce a building tension through subtle increases in vocal intensity, and choruses that release that tension into a bright, open-throated declaration. Jungkook's navigation of this dynamic arc was, according to Puth, remarkably self-directed. Rather than requiring detailed instructions about where to push and where to pull back, Jungkook made dynamic choices that aligned with the song's intended emotional architecture organically. He understood that the verse needed restraint to create contrast with the chorus, that the pre-chorus required a specific incremental build rather than an abrupt shift, and that the chorus needed to feel like an arrival rather than an explosion. These are the kinds of decisions that experienced songwriters and producers make consciously after years of studying song structure. Jungkook was making them reflexively. The third domain, vocal detail, encompasses the micro-decisions that occur within individual phrases, where to place a slight vocal fry for texture, when to let a note decay, naturally versus cutting it cleanly, how much vibrato to apply, and at what point in the note's duration, whether to approach a pitch from slightly below or hit it squarely. These decisions are the fingerprint of a vocalist's artistic identity, and they are where instinct is most clearly distinguished from technique. A technically trained singer can execute any of these effects on command. An instinctive singer applies them in the right context, at the right moment, in the right proportion, without deliberation. Puth noted that Jungkook's application of these micro-details during recording sessions was not only appropriate, but occasionally revelatory. He would add a textural element to a phrase that Puth had not envisioned, but that, upon hearing it, clearly improved the musical result. This capacity to enhance a collaborator's vision rather than simply executing it is what elevates a session musician to a creative partner, and it is exceedingly rare in artists who are primarily known as performers rather than producers or songwriters. The evidence of Jungkook's musical instinct extends well beyond his collaboration with Puth. His self-produced work provides a window into his creative process unfiltered by outside direction. Tracks like Still With You and My You were composed and arranged with Jungkook's direct involvement, and they reveal a harmonic sensibility that favors extended chords, seventh chords, suspended chords, and added tone voicings, over the simple triadic structures that dominate mainstream pop. Still With You is built on a jazz-influenced chord progression that moves through unexpected harmonic territory, including minor seventh voicings and chromatic passing chords that create a bittersweet harmonic color. The fact that Jungkook gravitates toward these more complex harmonic structures in his personal work suggests an ear that is drawn to sonic richness and ambiguity rather than the predictable resolution patterns of conventional pop songwriting. This preference aligns with the musical instincts of artists who have been deeply immersed in genres like R&B, jazz, and soul. Genres where harmonic complexity is a foundational element rather than an ornamental addition. Puth's recognition of Jungkook's instinct also carries implications for understanding how musical collaboration functions at the highest level. When two artists enter a studio together, the creative dynamic is shaped by the relative musical fluency of each participant. If one artist is operating at a significantly higher level of musical understanding, the collaboration becomes essentially directorial. The more fluent artist makes decisions, and the less fluent artist executes them. For a collaboration to be genuinely reciprocal, both artists must be operating within a shared zone of musical comprehension, even if their specific skill sets differ. Puth's surprise at Jungkook's instinctive responses indicates that Jungkook was not merely following direction, but actively contributing to the creative outcome at a level Puth recognized as peer adjacent. This is a significant assessment from someone whose musical standards are calibrated by perfect pitch and conservatory training. It suggests that Jungkook's musical intelligence, while developed through a different pathway than formal Western education, has arrived at a destination that enables high-level creative exchange with some of the most technically accomplished musicians in the Western pop industry. The commercial outcome of their collaboration validated the creative chemistry that Puth described. Left and Right debuted at number 22 on the Billboard Hot 100, accumulated over 1 billion streams on Spotify, and became a global hit that performed strongly across markets in Asia, North America, Europe, and South America. The song's success was driven in part by the vocal interplay between Puth and Jungkook, which listeners responded to as a genuine musical conversation rather than two separate vocal tracks layered over the same instrumental. The melodic hooks, dynamic contours, and textural details that emerged from their instinct-driven collaborative process translated directly into commercial appeal, demonstrating that musical sophistication and mainstream accessibility are not mutually exclusive when the artists involved possess sufficient instinct to navigate both simultaneously. Puth's continued public admiration for Jungkook in the years following their collaboration, referencing him in interviews, engaging with his solo releases on social media, and expressing interest in future projects, confirms that his assessment was not a promotional courtesy, but a genuine professional recognition. And if Charlie Puth was struck by Jungkook's instinctive musicality in the controlled environment of a recording studio, our number one legend discovered something even more foundational, an insatiable artistic curiosity that drives Jungkook to constantly evolve, experiment, and push beyond the boundaries of what is expected. Number 1. Pharrell Williams. Jungkook's artistic curiosity makes him different from other BTS members. Pharrell Williams is not simply a hitmaker. He is the architect of sound itself in 21st century popular music. As one half of the Neptunes alongside Chad Hugo, Pharrell produced or co-produced tracks that collectively sold over 100 million records between 1998 and 2012, fundamentally reshaping the sonic architecture of hip-hop, R&B, and pop during that period. The Neptunes' production credits read like a syllabus of modern music history. Snoop Dogg's Drop It Like It's Hot, Jay-Z's I Just Wanna Love You, Nelly's Hot and Harry, Justin Timberlake's Like I Love You, Gwen Stefani's Hollaback Girl, and Daft Punk's Get Lucky, on which Pharrell performed the vocals that propelled it to global ubiquity. As a solo artist, his 2013 track, Happy, spent 10 weeks atop the Billboard Hot 100, was nominated for an Academy Award, and became the de facto soundtrack of an entire calendar year. Beyond music, Pharrell has built creative empires spanning fashion through his Billionaire Boys Club and ice cream footwear brands, visual art through his gallery collaborations, and film scoring through his Academy Award-nominated work on Hidden Figures. He is, by any measurable standard, one of the most creatively diverse and commercially successful artists alive. When Pharrell identifies artistic curiosity as the defining quality that separates Jungkook from the other members of BTS, he is applying the metric he values above all others: the hunger to learn, to question, to dismantle creative boundaries and reassemble them into something new. Pharrell's relationship with BTS extends beyond casual acquaintance. He conducted an extended conversation with the group for Rolling Stone's June 2021 cover story, during which he engaged each member individually on topics ranging from their creative influences to their personal philosophies about artistry and fame. This was not a scripted promotional interview. It was a substantive exchange between a veteran creative polymath and 7 young artists at the peak of their cultural influence. Within that conversation and in subsequent interactions, Pharrell identified in Jungkook a specific quality that resonated with his own creative philosophy, an unquenchable curiosity that manifests not as passive interest but as active pursuit. Jungkook does not simply admire other art forms from a distance. He teaches himself to do them. He does not simply listen to genres outside his comfort zone. He deconstructs them, identifies their mechanical components, and experiments with incorporating those components into his own work. This behavioral pattern, the compulsion to understand rather than merely consume, is what Pharrell recognizes as the engine of long-term artistic evolution, and it is what he believes fundamentally differentiates Jungkook's creative trajectory from that of his fellow members. The evidence of Jungkook's artistic curiosity is not anecdotal. It is extensively documented across years of public content, social media, and behind-the-scenes footage. His pursuits extend far beyond the vocal and dance training that constitutes the standard K-pop skill set. Jungkook has taught himself video filming and editing, producing content under his self-assigned creative identity, Golden Closet Films, a series of travel and behind-the-scenes videos that demonstrate a developing eye for composition, color grading, and narrative pacing. He has studied photography with sufficient seriousness to produce work that reflects an understanding of lighting, depth of field, and visual storytelling. He has explored painting, drawing, and graphic design, sharing his work publicly and demonstrating a willingness to be a visible beginner in disciplines where he holds no professional credential. This willingness to be publicly imperfect is itself a significant creative trait. Many artists, particularly those operating at the highest levels of fame, avoid displaying work in disciplines where they are not yet expert, fearing that it will undermine their perceived mastery. Jungkook's openness about his learning process suggests a creative ego that is driven by growth rather than protected by reputation, a distinction that Pharrell, who has reinvented his own creative identity multiple times across decades, recognizes as essential. Within the musical domain specifically, Jungkook's curiosity manifests as a voracious and eclectic listening practice that directly feeds his artistic output. His publicly shared playlists and song recommendations reveal a listener whose appetite ranges across decades and genres with no apparent boundary. He has cited influences spanning Justin Timberlake's rhythmic pop precision, Justin Bieber's melodic directness, Troye Sivan's atmospheric minimalism, Lauve's confessional indie pop intimacy, and the classic R&B textures of artists like Usher and Chris Brown. But the critical observation is not that Jungkook listens widely. Many musicians do. It is that he listens analytically. In behind-the-scenes studio footage and live broadcasts, Jungkook has been observed dissecting the specific production elements of tracks he admires, identifying the drum pattern that gives a song its rhythmic character, isolating the vocal processing technique that creates a particular texture, noting the arrangement choice that determines how a chorus hits differently from a verse. This analytical listening converts passive consumption into active education, building a mental library of musical techniques and structures that he can draw upon when creating or interpreting his own material. Pharrell has described his own creative process in nearly identical terms, as a constant absorption of stimuli from every available source, filtered through an internal system that identifies connections and possibilities invisible to less curious minds. The practical impact of this curiosity on Jungkook's musical output is measurable in the stylistic range of his solo discography. His debut solo album, Golden, released in November 2023, was deliberately designed as a showcase of versatility rather than a commitment to a single sonic identity. The lead single, 7, featuring Latto, drew from UK garage and two-step rhythmic traditions, genres with deep roots in British dance music culture that are far removed from the typical sonic palette of K-pop or mainstream American pop. 3D, featuring Jack Harlow, incorporated elements of electronic pop and hip-hop hybridity. Standing Next to You reached back to the retro funk and disco pop traditions of the late 1970s and 1980s, with a music video that directly referenced the performance aesthetics of Michael Jackson's Off the Wall era. Closer to You explored a softer acoustic pop territory, while Shot Glass of Tears ventured into country pop, a genre that few international artists have attempted to navigate credibly. The willingness to attempt country pop, a genre deeply embedded in American cultural identity and historically resistant to outsider interpretation, is itself an act of artistic curiosity. It signals an artist who is not intimidated by the risk of cultural mismatch, but is instead driven by a genuine desire to understand and inhabit unfamiliar musical spaces. Pharrell's emphasis on curiosity as a differentiating factor is rooted in his understanding of how artistic careers sustain themselves over time. The music industry is populated by artists who achieve massive initial success based on a single compelling formula and then struggle to evolve beyond that formula as audience tastes shift. The artists who endure, the Bowies, the Madonnas, the Jay-Z's, the Pharrells themselves, share a common trait. They are constitutionally incapable of repeating themselves. Their curiosity compels them to abandon proven formulas in favor of uncharted creative territory, even when the commercial incentive to stay safe is overwhelming. Pharrell sees this same compulsion in Jungkook. Despite the enormous commercial success of his existing sound, 7 debuted at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, making him the first solo K-pop artist in history to achieve that position. Jungkook has shown no indication of settling into a repetitive creative pattern. His public statements about his artistic goals consistently emphasize growth, learning, and experimentation over commercial optimization. He has expressed interest in exploring genres he has not yet attempted, in developing his songwriting and production skills beyond their current level, and in collaborating with artists whose work challenges his existing creative assumptions. This forward-looking orientation is precisely what Pharrell identifies as the marker of an artist with lasting significance rather than temporary popularity. The distinction Pharrell draws between Jungkook and the other BTS members on the axis of curiosity is not a diminishment of his groupmates' artistry. Each member of BTS has pursued solo creative endeavors that reflect genuine artistic vision. RM's solo albums Indigo and Right Place, Wrong Person demonstrate a deeply introspective, philosophically oriented approach to music that draws from indie rock, alternative R&B, and spoken word traditions. Suga's work as August D is a masterclass in technical rap precision and autobiographical lyrical depth. J-Hope's Jack in the Box represented a deliberate pivot toward grittier, less commercially conventional hip-hop textures. Jimin's Face explored emotional vulnerability through contemporary pop and R&B frameworks. V's Layover embraced a jazz-inflected, atmospheric aesthetic that prioritized mood over hooks. Jin's solo work has centered on vocal balladry that showcases his clear, resonant tenor. Each of these projects reflects a specific, well-defined artistic direction. What Pharrell observes in Jungkook is not a superior direction, but a qualitatively different relationship with direction itself. A refusal to commit to a single lane in favor of maintaining the freedom to explore all of them. This restless creative mobility, while potentially riskier in terms of establishing a fixed brand identity, is the quality that Pharrell associates with the highest echelon of artistic longevity. Jungkook's curiosity also extends to the performative and technological dimensions of his artistry in ways that reinforce Pharrell's assessment. He has shown active interest in the mechanics of music production, moving beyond his role as a vocalist to engage with the tools of sound creation. His involvement in the arrangement and production of tracks like Still With You indicates a desire to understand and control the full chain of musical creation, from conception to final mix. He has experimented with audio recording equipment, demonstrated awareness of microphone technique and room acoustics, and engaged with digital audio workstation software. This expansion into production territory mirrors Pharrell's own trajectory, from session drummer and vocalist to one of the most influential producers in music history. The parallel is not coincidental. It reflects a shared understanding that true artistic autonomy requires mastery of the creative process from end to end, not just command of a single instrument or skill. As Jungkook continues to develop these production skills alongside his vocal, physical, and visual artistry, the full scope of his creative potential becomes increasingly difficult to define. And that indefinability, that refusal to be contained by a single category, is exactly what Pharrell Williams recognizes as the rarest and most valuable quality an artist can possess. Those are the 7 American legends who each identified something distinct in Jungkook's artistry. Quincy Jones's legacy points to a global star potential built on vocal precision and cross-cultural resonance. Diana Ross's Standard reveals a magnetic stage presence that commands attention without effort. Steve Aoki's studio experience exposed an adaptability that allows Jungkook to move between genres and languages without losing his identity. Her's ear for emotional truth recognized a voice that transmits feeling at a frequency most singers never access. Usher's Performer's Eye confirmed a physical and vocal balance that defies the biological limitations most artists accept as inevitable. Charlie Puth's perfect pitch and conservatory training were genuinely surprised by a musical instinct that operates on reflex rather than calculation. And Pharrell Williams, the man who has shaped the sound of 3 decades, saw the quality he values above all others, an artistic curiosity that guarantees Jungkook will never stop evolving. 7 perspectives, each from a different corner of the music industry, each landing on a different facet of the same artist. The common thread is not that Jungkook is better than his groupmates. It is that he carries a combination of qualities that even the most accomplished figures in American music recognize as rare. Now the question goes to you. Which legend's observation hit the hardest? Drop it in the comments. And if this is your first time here, subscribe, because the next video goes even deeper into the facts behind BTS that most people never hear about.